last bits of summer. Enjoy. Everyone stay hydrated, get outside, enjoy the last bits that we'll have, and go from there. So for today, everybody is nice and muted. And we're going to go over just a handful of things, and hopefully I'll have everybody out of here by the bottom of the hour. And that's going to be, we've got some housekeeping just to cover. And then today is really going to be more about stuff that we don't typically talk about with regard to accounts and with regard to some of the features available, and how they are actually useful for everyone. So with that, let's first kick off with housekeeping. For those of you that don't know, we're coming into the tail end of the year. So RMDs, if you haven't already taken them, you'll certainly be hearing from us. We did send out something recently to a number of clients regarding the fully paid securities lending program. If you did see it, and you want more information, please let us know. Otherwise, we're going to be making sure that we get out account packets. It was quite a large number of folks. And we'll discuss the advantages of that if we haven't already done so with you. So that's on the housekeeping side. The next piece on the housekeeping side is going to be, and the last piece is that I have heard from a couple of folks regarding the fact that we call this the state of the firm on a monthly meeting. They thought it was something that was internal, not external, for everybody to join. And so we're probably going to do a little name change just to keep stuff fresh and make sure that everybody understands why we're doing this, and making sure that we market it a little bit better so that way folks can get logged in. So that's items for the housekeeping. Quick update on the portfolio. We are going to be adding a couple of individual securities, and we did add something recently. You'll see that we did add ticker symbol JEPI to the portfolios recently, which is a hedged equity fund. And the idea is that it's going to create a little bit more yield in the portfolios. It's not going to have a whole lot of volatility, because it is hedged, and it is meant to be only a small portion of the portfolios. So, if you've got additional questions about why we added the holding or what it means to you and your specific portfolio, as always, don't hesitate, reach out, give us a call. In addition, we're going to be adding, I mentioned, some individual equities. We are doing some rebalancing. This is the time of year when we do look at the portfolios, how securities have been performed or have performed. We do a little bit of what's called tax loss harvesting for those of you with taxable accounts. And so we will be focusing on getting some of those trades made where appropriate as we come into the tail end of the year. The other thing is that for those of you with taxable accounts, we are going to, and with RMDs, we are going to want to check in with you and your accountants, make sure those quarterly tax remittances got paid, and because we're going to have a good idea of just about what those tax implications are at the end of the year. Soon we get capital gains releases, that kind of thing. I want to make sure I'm stuff in the coming months. So we'll get everybody on the calendar soon. And that is what's coming up for the portfolio release date. But keep an eye out for some portfolio changes and some things that are going on that side with regard to securities added, a couple of things removed. So you will see some trading on our part. Again, and then to conclude, as we leave this section and begin the main part of our presentation, if you've got questions, reach out, give us a call, and schedule some time, and we will sit down together and make sure we get those questions addressed. Last but not least, main part of the presentation today. Today is really talking about stuff that we don't always talk about in terms of account features that are really important, that we don't talk about enough or emphasize enough. So I'll dive into probably the biggest one for everyone that has required our minimum distributions. So this is actually a fairly new feature. We can actually incorporate what is called check writing on your IRA account. Now, what that means is that we can actually have a transmission feature that has for your IRA account a ABA routing number and a checking account type number, which means that if doing things like participating in, say, Giving Tuesday coming up in December for qualified charitable distributions, we now have a mechanism in which to complete RMDs, fulfill them, and fulfill charitable giving. And that also is quite useful in the event you are, say, giving money to college, gifting out for grandkids, kids, that kind of thing. Next on that same token is sometimes we talk about remitting taxes. And one of the things that we have noticed and conversations that we've had with various tax collectors and accountants over the past couple of years is that due to staff cutbacks, we talk about COVID, we talk about various other things in processing, is that the preference of taxing districts and the preference of the IRS is that those tax payments are remitted directly to the IRS via the website, as opposed to mailing out a physical check. Now, in the process of mailing out said physical check, those things sometimes get lost in the mail. It takes a while to process them, all those kinds of things. Having that check writing feature allows us either in a taxable account or in a pre-tax, like our IRA account, to actually go in and pay those taxes directly. So that's kind of why you want to have it. In addition to that, we talk about the fact that you can get a debit card. So we can also add in a debit card for and things like bill pay. Why would you want to have this on an investment account? Why would you want to have this feature at all related to your investments or one of these things? Well, you can't always pay by check. The other thing that comes into play here with that is that some of you may have noticed that the yields on our accounts with regard to cash are actually higher than what you're getting at the bank. So it's actually better to keep more cash in the cash portion of your brokerage account, either through one of our money market holdings or just in general in the cash account than it is in your checking account. And so by having that debit card, you now have immediate access to it. The other thing is that I always harp on everybody, from the financial planner and the preparer in me, that you should always have an emergency backup. And so having that emergency backup is, well, frankly, that's why you have it. It's emergency backup. Keeping in that same theme, not everybody knows this, but did you know we have bill pay? Bill pay is a free feature that is on an investment account with us. So you can actually pay all your bills. We actually have, I wouldn't call it full banking functionality, not by any stretch of the means, but limited banking. A lot of the things that you find at your bank in terms of your checking account and those features that you have in your online bank, a lot of those features are available. We don't talk enough about them. We certainly don't share that information enough. But I will tell you this. Our office has actually been testing for the last, well, actually, no. Yeah, for almost all of 2022, we've been testing a number of these features: the debit card, the check writing, the bill pay. Those features have all worked really well as a backup. And we've had really good functionality. We've had no issues with transactions. Now, knock on wood, that doesn't mean that it's always going to be perfect every time, but we certainly feel confident enough to discuss these features and this functionality in a webcast call. And the point is that why are these available? Why are we talking about them now? Why are these things important? Well, they're important for a lot of reasons. One is that over the course of the pandemic, what we're seeing that banks have dramatically scaled back their various services. The other thing is that for ease of use, a lot of people want to have one point for login for banking, one point to do a lot of things. And so this makes their life a lot easier. The other thing is that when it comes, and also with the fact that cash has largely gone by the wayside, people feel very limited need to actually go to the ATM anymore and actually get real physical cash. And so having all of these features, having all of this functionality is an added touch point. It's an added piece of functionality, in which case you all can interact with our firm, in which case you all can feel confident about your money. And so even if you want to have these features on your account, just as a backup, please know that they're available to you. The other thing that I'm going to do in keeping up with the same thing is on your phone, through the app, you actually have mobile check deposit, which means that in the event you have an account with us and you actually do get a physical check, you can deposit up to $25,000 in your brokerage account if you have this feature turned on. Now, why is this important? Well, it's important for one specific reason. Most banks, because their institutions are not set up the same way, cap you at anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000, and that's if the feature is available at all. So the point is that it's a higher touch point. It's something that you may not have in general. It's added functionality. It's added ease of use. And our office is here and on staff to work with you directly. So as opposed to just having to call a 1-800 number and sit on hold and have someone verify your identity and, take an hour or two of your day, you have us. Plain and simple. So that's a few easy, simple, straightforward options that are available to you just right away. Now I'm going to get into a couple of things that are a little bit more complex and a little bit higher level. First, I'm going to dive into the lending side. People often talk to me about where can I go to get a line of credit, or I'm going to buy a house, or I'm going to this, or I'm going to that. How do I get my hands on liquid capital? Well, the reality is that we do have actually relationships through the broker-dealer, through Cambridge, and through Fidelity, through Schwab, through our various custody platforms that allow for what are basically lines of credit against your invested taxable assets. And so you are actually able to borrow. The lenders vary, could be up to 70%. My advice, because of the way that things function, is to keep that level at around 50% of whatever you would deem your account value, you anticipate your account value to be. And I can work with you on what that number might be. But the point is that you can establish a line of credit for use in order to do borrowing, to cover big expenses, do various things. Establishing the initial line and borrowing, it's about $70,000. You basically have to meet that line of credit at 70, but you can borrow kind of as little as you want. The nice part is that it offers you a preferred interest rate, and we're a lot easier to work with than, say, the bank. Try and establish a home equity line of credit right now. It's a long wait time, and it costs a lot of money. We can establish the line of credit in a matter of weeks at no cost. So there's a financial advantage there. We don't talk about this feature enough. We probably should talk about it more, but it could have a real positive impact on your overall plan and your overall ease and sleeping at night, knowing that you have this access line of credit that is not going to, dare I say, make you miserable in order to maintain. So that's another feature. Now, I mentioned there were two. So we talk about lines of credit, money going out. Now let's talk about money coming in. Now, one of the things that we talked about recently, and like I mentioned at the beginning of this call, is we talked about what's called a portfolio line of credit, a fully paid securities lending program. Now, this has been something we've been exploring, looking into for quite a while. If you have an account with us of a certain size, and meets certain criteria, we can ascribe to this program. Now, what it is this is not you borrowing money to go out into the marketplace to do something else. This is about you participating in a program that allows Fidelity, National Financial Services, to actually make use of the securities in your portfolio without borrowing them per se, but it's for the purposes of filling orders in their transactions in their order book. It makes it more efficient. It brings prices down during and it shortens settlement periods. So it has a lot of good economic impacts with regard to the total overall cost of ownership, with regard to fees, rates, etc. All the various things that are internal minutiae that I have to worry about, not so much for you. Where you, the clients, are benefiting is very simple and very straightforward. In exchange for signing up to participate in this program, you receive an interest rate whenever those securities are borrowed by Fidelity to help fulfill orders. Now, they obviously replace those orders. They don't just leave them out there ad infinitum. The whole point is that if those shares are borrowed to fill orders and keep the balance sheet clean, they want to put those back as quick as possible. So, they borrow security, they pay you interest, they bring it back to you. This is just like, and a very easy, and I will say this is an oversimplified comparison, but it is something for thought. And you can give it more research if you like, but for the purposes of this call, it's similar to net interest margin, what a bank does, and how they pay money into your checking account or their interest account. They borrow that money in your account. They use it in what's called the overnight window for institutional borrowing. They make money. They get some interest on that money that they lend, and they give you a portion of the proceeds, and that's the net interest margin. That's the interest that gets credited into your checking or savings account. That's how that money ends up in there. We learned about that in our middle school banking class in economics. So same principles, same sort of functionality. But these are all certainly things, functions, features, things in your account that they're talking about, but we haven't really talked about in general. We don't put a lot of information on the website about these specialized features. We probably should, but the reality is that they might muddy the waters and they might distract from the main points of the conversation. The key thing is that these kinds of features are available to you, and we can add them into your account to improve the functionality, improve the overall experience that you have with your money. And like I said, we've been testing a lot of these things over the last several months. We feel a lot more comfortable rolling them out because we have a lot more confidence in them now that we've been able to familiarize ourselves with them. Now, the other thing that I'll bring up is that you're probably wondering to yourself, what took you so long to do this? Well, the reality is a number of these programs actually have been available to clients at significantly higher dollar figures and various other things. So really, in order to qualify, you actually had to fit a highly specialized set of criteria. And we felt that with that highly specialized set of criteria in place, that it maybe didn't bear talking about in a larger platform such as this. So there's a select group of clients that have been familiar with some of the things that I've talked about today because they fit that specialized criteria. But now that things are much more open, we've tested some of these things at lower dollar values, and we understand them. We felt that it was important to actually have a call and discuss some of these features, let people know about them, let them know that we're proactively thinking of ways to actually enhance the value add and make the relationship that you have with your money a lot easier and a lot more straightforward. So those are the main criteria. The next couple of little pieces of criteria that I want to add in, things that we don't really talk about, are the fact that we can also perform for folks in certain states. We can also add in things like HSA, health savings accounts. We can also add in things like 529 plan accounts. So these are things that we don't necessarily talk about. They're not always in the mainstream, but we can in fact incorporate these things into the portfolio. We can in fact do some of this work and make it available to you. And like I said, the purpose of today's call is really to talk about the things we don't talk about in terms of the platform, in terms of what you can have access to. And so all of these things are here. They are all available. You know, and now we're starting to feel confident enough in which to actually roll them out, talk about them in greater detail. And so as we're coming into the bottom of the hour, I'll conclude on this on these couple of things. Over the years, my career, we started out where it was a big deal if you had an online account to access your investment account. It became a big deal to then have an app that was available on your phone. That became commonplace, table stakes, if you will. It became then iPads. You had an app on your iPad. You could access maybe limited functionality on your iPad. Now, for the most part, you can almost always access full functionality on your iPad or on your phone. The point is that you're able to interact with your money in various ways, however you choose, but also with a lot of how should I say this? A lot of functionality, a lot of features that didn't used to be available. So things that we thought about in my career, stuff that people like me talked about for a long time early on that didn't used to be available or were only available at your bank. Now a lot of these features are available through our firm and within your investment account, and now should be available. These should be what I consider table stakes. I had a meeting with a peer earlier today, and we talked about table stakes for doing this kind of work, for running your own investment firm. And the things that I'm talking about here right now are actually what we felt were table stakes for our clients. These were the things that we should have as an offering in order to provide professional services. So I want to make sure that we took the time to tell you about them. Obviously, distilled versions of what I am saying today will probably be added to the YouTube channels and some of the other stuff that's available online. And we may even polish a couple of these things up and go into a little bit greater detail from an example factor. But that's the main stuff for today that I wanted to make sure we covered on the call. With that, I will kind of bid everyone adieu. But before I do want to mention that I am aware of kind of what went on in the market. Today, we did have a lot of volatility, based on the inflation number, based on some of the other stuff. There's certainly going to be a lot to talk about. We'll address some more of that separately on a larger, different call that we will do mid-month, based on the information that's available to us and how the markets have moved, because I do think it is worth discussing in greater detail. So with that, stay tuned for more. Tune in, same bat channel, different time. And with that, I bid everyone a fond farewell. Go enjoy the sunset. Go enjoy these last couple of weeks of warm weather before things turn cooler and the leaves start to turn. So with that, good evening, and we will talk soon. All right. Bye-bye, everyone.